welcome back to My Kitten Reads. I'm Eleanor and this is my belated May 2022 wrap up. There were a lot of books in May. There were really a lot of books in May. Sorry this is late. It's been a distracted few weeks, what with final essays and Le Mans 24 Hour, and I keep telling myself I need to film and then I don't. So I'm finally getting around to it. So May. I actually pretty much, I'm behind again, but I pretty much caught up with my goal, like on track for my goal for the year overall, because I read 17 things in May. Between uni and the 24-hour readathon, Dewies 24-hour readathon that happened mostly on the 1st of May for me, and a sudden binge of certain books, I read a lot. A lot. I've slipped back a bit the last couple of weeks because I've just been, my head's been everywhere. But I did read a lot of things. So what did I read? So the first thing I finished during Dewies, if you've seen that video, is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. So this was for uni. Wasn't quite my thing, but was, at least I finished it, which is better than I managed when I tried to read Jamaica Inn for uni a few years back. But it's a modern gothic. It's the interesting thing about it, and we talked about this in class, is that the book's called Rebecca. Rebecca, the actual character, is already dead by the time we start the book. The book is actually from the perspective of Rebecca's husband's second wife, who never gets named. She's just Mrs. De Winter the entire novel. But the book's named after Rebecca, and that's what basically Rebecca is. She looms over the entire novel as this kind of departed but still there figure. You know, the house is still exactly as she decorated it. You know, the housekeeper idolizes Rebecca and still does everything exactly the way Rebecca wanted it. And so this poor Mrs. De Winter is sort of haunted by this woman she's never met. And the secret about her death. So yeah, it's a classic gothic novel. Wasn't like modern gothic, it wasn't quite my thing, but I did at least finish it. So that's a start. Then I read in Dewies a couple of comics. So I read 2 volumes of The Lumberjanes, volume 10, Parents' Day, and volume 11, Time After Crime. These were fun, they were light-hearted, they were full of friendship, they are queer because they have queer characters. So Parents' Day, there's a lot of nerves in some parts about parents coming to visit for the day and what if things go wrong. And then The Time After Crime, again, there's another mystery in the Lumberjanes camp. So yeah, there are squirrels, there are mooses, I don't know, but yes, there's a mysterious voice that accidentally gets activated, there's some science happening. So yeah, Lumberjanes, I always loved the Lumberjanes. As you can see, it's been a month and a half since I actually read them, so I'm trying to remember exactly what happened. Which doesn't sound great, but I've read a lot. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed reading both of these. Then I picked up and read Network Effect by Martha Wells, which I think was my April pick out of the TBR jar. I don't think I did a May pick out of the TBR jar. I kept intending to and then just got distracted. But Network Effect is the first novel and the 5th story in the Murderbot Diaries series. It was really entertaining. It was really fast paced. It was adventure, mystery, you know, danger, all the sort of action that you love in a Murderbot story, with the really kind of slightly irritated, slightly worried, doesn't really want to be their Murderbot, who just really wants their shows, but they've been dragged into another adventure against their will. So Murderbot, woo, love a Murderbot. I also ended up finishing a reread of Emma by Jane Austen. You know me, love an Austen. yeah, love an Austen. I quite enjoy Emma. It's quite funny, lighthearted. Probably not my top tier of novels, but probably on my second tier of Jane Austen novels. You know, bit of matchmaking, bit of shenanigans, bit of everything you're guessing is wrong. But everything, of course, turns out all right in the end. I also read a new Austen variation by Martin Honeycutt called The Golden Thimble. This one is a little bit different to my usual ones, in that it was a bit of a fantasy one and it had fairies, like actual fairies. And in The Golden Thimble, Lizzie rescues a fairy and mends her wings. And then later, when she grows up a bit, Lizzie gets given a mission from Fairyland to save Puck, who happens to be Mr. Darcy, who's being threatened by a monster who happens to be Caroline Bingley. So yeah, and you know, in that adventure, they manage to, you know, as usual, fall in love because it's a Pride and Prejudice variation. It's just got fairies in it. Then I read something else for uni, and that was a short story. It was called The Lottery, and it was by Shirley Jackson. That was for our horror week. It didn't really do much for me. Like, sort of, it was a story about a lottery, but by the time you get to the end, you find out, you know, this lottery everyone participates in, but the person who wins said lottery every year gets stoned to death. So, like, horrendous behaviour. But honestly, I didn't find it particularly scary. I think I didn't find it horror. It was kind of horrifying, but also something I can totally believe would actually happen, that humanity would do. It didn't really have enough tension or horror in it for me to be scared. I just went, well, that's not nice. Meh. It's apparently a classic. It's the first piece of Shirley Jackson I've read, but it just didn't work for me. Then I had to reread The Body in the Library by Agatha Christie for uni. This is for our crime week. This is one of my favourite Miss Marple stories, so I thoroughly enjoyed rereading it. In this one, a body is found in Colonel and Mrs. Boundary's library. They call on their friend Miss Marple to try and figure out why there's a body of a young girl who's been strangled on their library rug. And it's, as it is with a lot of Miss Marples, she's more concerned with the innocent than the guilty. Because, as she kind of puts it, you know, everyone will just assume Colonel Bantry did it because it was found on his hearthrug. And he will just, you know, but it won't be proved because it wasn't him. But invitations will dry up. People will stop coming over. People will start turning a cold shoulder, and he'll notice and he'll draw in on himself, and it will just be terrible. So she needs to find out who it was so that the innocent parties don't suffer, which tends to be a bit of a theme with Miss Marple. So love The Body in the Library. And that sent me off on an Agatha Christie kick. And I binged a whole bunch of Agatha Christie books. Some were rereads, some were new to me. So I reread A Pocket Full of Rye, which is a Poirot. No, it's not. It's another Miss Marple, which I'm quite fond of. And in which Rex Fortescue, who is a financial wizard, a businessman, sort of drops dead while having his morning cup of tea. It wasn't actually his morning cup of tea in the office that was what killed him. It was poisoning though, and he was found with a pocket of dry rye grain, like grain. And then more people die. Miss Marple gets involved because one of the people that dies is her former maid. And there's this whole thing with the rhymer at Blackbird, 4 and 20 Blackbirds, you know, Rex, the king in his counting house, his wife, the queen in the parlour eating bread and honey, but she's having scones for tea, and she gets poisoned as well. Yeah. So this is another Miss Marple, which I always enjoy. Then I decided to go for some ones that I hadn't actually read. So what I hadn't actually read before is any Tommy and Tuppence. So this is a smaller series of Agatha Christie's. There's only, I think, 5 books in it. And I've now read 3. So these were all on my TBR pile. I had a slight bit of experience with Tommy and Tuppence in that they adapted one of them as a Miss Marple TV movie. But I had not actually read Tommy and Tuppence. So I read N or M. So this is a Tommy and Tuppence, which I believe is set during World War II, I think. One of the wars, where Tommy and Tuppence end up sort of acting as spies to try and find German spies. So they're a husband and wife. This is actually in like the middle of the series. I didn't actually read them in order, but so essentially they both go undercover, Tommy officially and Tuppence unofficially, in this seaside town to try and dig out these mysterious German spies in this boarding house. So that's cool. That was fun. Then I read The Secret Adversary, which is another Tommy and Tuppence. And this is the first one. This is the first Tommy and Tuppence. And they are young, they're not married yet, they're flat broke. So they decide to form a business, a partnership, Daring Young Adventurers Limited. And their assignment ends up being to find a girl. The problem being, yeah, it's a big conspiracy based on secret documents from the First World War, I believe. And this girl who was asked to bring them into the company because the actual agent was going to be killed. Figured he was going to be killed. So he gave them, they were on a sinking ship, and because women and children were going to get off first, he gave them to this girl, but she lost her memory, and so she disappeared, and so the plans disappeared. But now, even though the war's over, it could be highly politically embarrassing, and so they're trying to find this girl and all this. It's a big conspiracy. It's quite interesting. I quite enjoyed it. And then there is By the Pricking of My Thumbs, which is, again, Tommy and Tuppence. It's the 4th one of 5. And this is the one that's been adapted to a Miss Marple, in which Tuppence and Miss Marple go investigating. But essentially, they visit Tommy's aunt, elderly aunt, in her nursing home. Tuppence has a weird encounter with another old lady, mentoring a child behind a fire. Then later, Tommy's aunt dies, and there's this mysterious painting and a letter that doesn't make much sense, and Tuppence takes it on herself to investigate and ends up uncovering strange missing children and stuff in the countryside that's involved with this house and all that kind of stuff. So, yep, it was quite different to the TV version, but I quite enjoyed it. I then read The Clocks by Agatha Christie, which is also, it's a Poirot. When I was in university the first time, I read all the Marples and all the Poirots, I'm pretty sure, but there seems to be a lot of Poirots I don't remember, because I didn't particularly remember this one. So this one, when this one happens, there's a typist, and she goes to an appointment in a building for a blind old lady, but the blind old lady isn't expecting her, and what they actually find is a dead man. Yeah, with a whole bunch of clocks, and so it's all a bit weird. And Poirot gets involved because one of the other people that is involved, not the detective, but like someone who, when the girl runs screaming out of the house, he crashes into someone who happens to be like an agent and who happens to know Poirot, and eventually he challenges Poirot to figure it out without moving from his chair. So yeah, so it's a Poirot, but most of the legwork is by someone else, which is what usually happens with Poirots. So it was reasonably interesting. I seriously don't remember having read it before, but I swear I had ticked off all the Poirots. Some of them apparently just aren't as memorable as you would think. After that, still going, I finished rereading on audio Miss Marple's Final Cases, which is a collection of short stories about Miss Marple, and there's like one at the end which is not a Miss Marple, and it's a bit weird. It's about a doll and I don't get it. But Miss Marple's Final Cases are a whole bunch of little short cases that Miss Marple was involved in. So that was a reread. Then for uni I had to read You're a Bad Man, Mr. Gum, which is a children's novel from the UK. I can't say I'm all that fond of it. This one might get donated to my nephews. They might enjoy it because it's one of those things sort of like Roald Dahl but modern, and it's a bit gross. So yeah, that might get donated to my nephews. Then I reread Elana, the First Adventure by Tamora Pierce, which, you know, I love Tamora Pierce, but I reread this for uni, as you can see by the tabs, because I was able to use it as a text for, it wasn't an assigned text, but we're allowed to use non-assigned texts if we got permission for our final essays, and I chose to use this. So it was a lovely bit of, I apparently haven't reread Elana in a long time, because when I went to put it on my Goodreads, it wasn't on my Goodreads red shelf. And I've had Goodreads for like a decade, so I clearly haven't reread Elana in like a decade, at least. So, yeah, it's been a while, but it was good to reread. So I've always loved it. And then there was also another Poirot that I was definitely rereading, and that was Peril at End House. This was the last thing I read in May, and this is a story about a girl who seems to be having all these accidents and sort of gets shot at in the garden in front of Poirot, and so he gets really concerned about her and tries to figure out who's trying to kill her, and then her cousin ends up killed, and it's all a bit sort of, yeah, it's all kind of wound up in like inheritances and all that kind of stuff. So Peril at End House was a fun not reread as well. Like I said, I read a lot of Agatha Christie, but that was the 17 things that I read in May. 17. Like I said, it caught me back up to schedule. I'm now behind schedule again because I've barely read anything this month, but that's okay. I can pick up something soon. I am, after all, off uni now. So yeah, part of it is that I've been a bit haphazard about my running. I've been doing some, but yes. Also, I should probably look at the Hugo's list because I can't actually remember whether I've signed up to vote for the Hugos this year, which I need to do if I haven't, and then I need to actually read the shortlist. So I should probably get on that really soon because I think votes have to be in by the end of August. So that's a thing. But yes, that's what I read in May. If you've read any of them, want to discuss any of those books, comment down below, like, subscribe, and I'll see you all again really soon. Bye.